So now we're going to talk about hollowing out our forms. It's best to take all the forms you've made so far and wrap them up in plastic. You don't want them to get all dried out while you're working on other things. The less you handle them with your hands and the more you keep them wrapped up, the nicer they'll stay. If you mess around with your clay too much, the moisture will get sucked right out of the clay. Your hands will suck the moisture out. So try not to play with them, mess around with them, unless you're doing something productive. So I have these wrapped up, and I'll set them off to the side. I'm going to show you how to hollow out your form. We have a sphere. I'm going to roll it a little more. It's not perfect. It's pretty close to round, but it has a few lumps and bumps. I'm not going to be super concerned about that right now. I will perfect it a little bit more later. So the first thing we need to do is hollow it. I'm going to find a good spot and go in with my index finger and just gently twist and push a little deeper. I don't want to come out all the way on the other side. I do want to go in. Let's see, I went about that far in. I'll use my thumb and measure. Okay, so I still have a little bit left on the outside. I'm not going to poke through. Once I have a hole started, I don't want to make this hole too much bigger. The larger I make this hole, the harder it is to close back up. When this form is hollowed out, it'll fire better in the kiln. If you tried to put a whole solid form in that isn't hollowed out, the form is going to have cracks and breakage and it won't survive the firing process. So we hollow it out to ensure that it will dry evenly and fire nicely. Once I get the hole started, I'm going to bend my finger just a little bit to hollow out the inside, kind of turning it as I go and hollowing it. I'm trying really hard not to make this hole bigger than it has to be. So once I get it hollowed a little bit more, we're doing pretty good. You want the walls of your form to be about the same thickness as your finger. If they get too thin, they'll cave in, and if they're thicker than the thickness of your index finger, you'll end up with breakage because they won't dry out completely, or air bubbles. So the right way to hollow, you want it to be consistent. You want the walls to be consistent, the hole to be kind of large enough, but you still need these edges to be thick. The biggest problem I see is people doing this the wrong way. They pull the edges up. And what I mean by that is they pinch these up skinny, skinny, skinny. You don't want to do that. You want this to stay fairly thick in here. This part right here. So you have to get your finger down into the hole and hollow out the inside without squeezing this and making it too thin, like this one. Okay. So I've got it hollowed out and I still have a lot to work with right here. So I'm going to gently kind of pinch around this part and pull it in closer, just a little bit at a time. And I can't pull it in too much closer because my finger's in there. So once I get it started, all I'm going to do is very carefully push that in a little bit at a time, closing that hole up, making it smaller, until it disappears completely. Now I know that this is hollow, but hopefully you can't tell. A little roll, and we're not completely sure what side it's hollow from. That's a good thing. What happens if this goes in the kiln as is? if this goes in right now, just as it is, it will create a huge air pocket in the middle. When it gets fired, when it starts to heat up, that air will expand and this will crack, possibly blow open. So it's really important once you get this all closed up that you poke a little hole in it. With a paper clip, that's all you really need. I don't have a paper clip on hand, but you just open one up, poke a hole in it, and it'll be good to go. Hollowing out a form like this one is the same type of process. I want to look for the most convenient place to hollow it out. So when I'm looking at this, would it make sense for me to go in from this long side? Probably not. It'd make a lot more sense to go in from the bottom. So I do the same thing, turn it, wiggle my finger in there, being careful not to mess up the form, and then I'm going to turn it just a little bit to try to get in there, hollow it out as much as I can without making the walls too thin. I don't need to make a huge cavity, but enough so it won't blow up in the kiln. Now, I have the hole, I need to close it up. I'm going to go down a little bit further than you think. I'm not going to start here and just pull this over. It'll be thin. I need to go down a little bit further and pull the clay up a little bit so I have a fairly substantial amount of clay to work with, and gently pull it. Now my finger won't fit in there anymore. And do a little more on this side. And then I can start to close up that hole. Little at a time. Might need to take a little from the edge. If the clay is wet enough, you should be able to manipulate it and move it in towards the hole. Okay. Hole is just about covered. I've misshapen my bottom just a little bit. I'll just tap it back out again. Not too bad. Maybe I give it stitches, back of my fingernail, get those cracks out, smooth it out with a dry finger. Okay. It's flat on the bottom. The rest of the form has shifted just a little bit. I will quickly give it a tap, fix it up again, smooth it out, and then I need to find my paper clip and poke a little hole in it, either in the bottom or in the side. As long as the air can get out, as long as the air can escape, it's not crucial where you poke the hole. Don't poke a huge hole. One little paper clip hole will do it.